Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lizard Brains podcast. I'm your host, DJ Allison Drini. I'm joined by my co-host, Tom O'Garman. How's it going, Tom?
I'm good, DJ Allison Drini.
It doesn't quite like roll off the tongue. I bet whoever that guy is that does like the "Let's get ready to rumble," that guy, he would love your name. My name, he would just be like, "What am I going to do with this?"
He could make him sound cool. It's his job.
Yeah, it is his job. He probably at this point, he could probably be taken over by AI, right?
Oh, I hope not. I hope not for him.
Oh no.
Guys, don't put that guy out of a job.
Yeah, don't do that. So, Tom, Tom was on a couple podcasts that came out last week, and the Ray, there's a guy that runs like he runs like a sim racing league, and there's like a couple different series that like run within his like little sphere of influence.
Yep.
It's Ray Esports, and you were on. They have a podcast, and Tom was on it. Did you hear his intro song?
I did. They have a full like AI esports song, and I
Dude,
hate to say it,
it was
it's like
pretty good.
it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. But the fact that I know that it's just like completely AI made, I'm like, oh,
I still
don't
found
know
it
if I
cool.
like this.
I found it cool. I don't know if we're gonna have a Lizard
did
Brain
too.
one, but
No, I don't want to have that. But I appreciated his. Yeah, I was on two different podcasts last week, and then we had our own. So it was definitely podcast week. Did you watch that episode with Steve Ray and the Ray Esports stuff?
yeah, I found it interesting how like they just like invited you to like do like the race recap, like where they're like kind of watching basically like when me and Tom do official races, we have a thing called the Larry Cam that we do afterwards. So like one of us will share our screen in Discord, and we'll just like
Yep.
cycle through all the incidents, and we'll just kind of be like, "Oh no, you can't park there, bud!" Ha ha ha! Like, and just laugh and stuff. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Man, have I been on the Larry Cam before?" The answer is yes. You've probably been on the Larry Cam.
Yeah.
So yeah,
If you have to ask,
yes,
you've already been on it.
yep.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it, bud.
So I thought that was kind of cool, like how like you're like going through the recap. The feedback that I would give to Ray is because people on the broadcast were also on the podcast. It was hard to tell when somebody on the broadcast was talking and somebody on the podcast was talking.
Oh, I guess I didn't go back and watch it. They had the commentary on while we were talking on the podcast.
Yes. Oh, so you couldn't hear it when you guys were watching.
Ooh, no, we couldn't. But I thought the format was pretty cool. The format of this podcast, we probably did maybe 75-80% of the time was talking about sim racing and my sim racing history and that kind of stuff, and as it pertains to real life and all this. But it started off with rewatching highlights from their sim racing league, which included 3 races: a Spec Racer Ford race, a Formula V race, and a Formula Ford race. And like doing a little recap watch of like the highlights was actually, I thought that was a pretty cool format. I enjoyed it. I recognized a couple names and a couple liveries, so I like kind of just turned the commentator hat on and jumped in. But it was a good time.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I think and I've been on like a Tom kick, like this whole like I've listening to. So
He kicked me right in the shins, everybody.
yeah,
Both
a
of
Tom
them.
kick. Yep, that's what I meant by Tom kick. Is I just kicked Tom.
Ow!
No, I listened to both of those episodes, and then I was like, I wonder what else Tom's been on lately. And then I saw that you were on like Ross Bentley's podcast, like back in 2020, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna listen to that too. So I've just like I'm basically sick of Tom O'Gorman by now.
Can't get rid of me.
Anyways, on that Ray Esports podcast, the thing that I found interesting just listening to it, where I like actually paused it and thought about it a little bit, is I don't know if it was everybody, but there was a single person, the guy with like the best voice on the podcast. He had like the deepest voice. His voice was like super clean. Like that man had a good voice. And but he seems like he has a lot of sim racing experience, but he's never driven a real car ever. And he kind of like mentioned that like somewhere in the podcast. And I just found that fascinating. And it made me think like, and it's so obvious, but I've never thought about it, that there's like millions of people at least that have that might be pretty proficient on the sim rig, but they've never actually driven a real car, or at least like in any kind of performance setting.
Oh, for sure. I was just thinking, I bet there are more people who have driven, well, this is maybe an obvious statement, but more people have driven in the sim and never driven a real car in any performance aspect ever
Right.
than have done actual real driving, and then, like, they've never tried a simulator or anything.
But like
Was
maybe
was there anything, I don't really remember what we talked about. Was there any big takeaways from that podcast?
um no, I mean just like I feel like guys, if you've listened to enough Tom O'Gorman podcasts, people always like touch on the same stuff except the one that you did with Devin Giles. Is that, am I saying his name correctly?
I think it's Giles, but yeah.
Giles. Okay. Um but yeah, that one touched on like different Tom O'Gorman subjects. But the other one, it seems like they always ask like the same kind of questions. So like you get kind of like the same Tom answers, you know what I mean?
Got my canned answers ready to go. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kinda like a
yeah.
stand-up comic. They got their same bits. You just
Dude,
launch right into
it
the
kind
same
of
bits
is
no matter
though.
what late show you're on.
It kind of is. When I was a waiter, I would have these like canned comments for like every scenario, and people thought I was hilarious. But it's like, nah, that's the 100th time that's happened. Like I just this has been workshopped a lot.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's only so many things you can ask about with motorsports, right?
Oh, one takeaway. So I'm watching these podcasts like thinking about for our own. I thought it was a cool thing, and I don't know if it would work for us because we mostly like most of our listens are not on the video. But I thought it was cool how they went through the pictures and just had you like, so they had a bunch of different pictures of Tom, and they just went through these pictures, and Tom was like, "Oh, this is I brought the TCR car to a Grid Life event, and oh, this was I was here and that, and oh, actually, this brings up a funny story," and like it was a good way to have the guest talk about just interesting things or like a point in time or history or something like that. I just thought it was interesting because like you you bring you bring a guest onto the podcast, and we do a little bit of research and like find some stuff to talk about or something along those lines, but like just doing a quick like image Google search of like that person that's coming on and then asking them like, so what's going on here, like I think that's actually pretty clever.
I think so too. Should we do that with Ross? Guys, Ross Bentley is coming on the Lizard Brains podcast. He will be the next episode that comes out on Thursday, July 3rd. So get stoked for that. But should we do that to Ross? Should we just like surprise him with a bunch of Google photos that just like let him reminisce for a little bit?
Yeah, I
That
think
might be kind of
so.
fun.
I think that would work. I'm curious, the people who only just listen, uh I'm curious what like how that would translate because they're not gonna know
Yeah,
the
true.
picture that we're talking about. So, but we could maybe like show the picture and then explain like what's in the picture and then have Ross like go down memory lane. I like that might work.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So
that'll
Jake
be
says
that'll be
I
so
feel
much
like the
fun.
story is better than the pic. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Is like we show them the
Right.
pic just to get the story. So like the listener onlys, uh, like they don't get to see the picture. We'll explain what's in the picture. They can imagine it, and then they get to hear the whatever cool story comes afterwards.
Yep. We'll workshop it. Maybe he'll be our guinea pig.
Yeah.
He emailed me today when we were like finalizing the details, and he's like, "Just don't ask me any hard questions," and
What?
then signed it. Ross. I was like, "Oh, you're in for a treat."
we get
TJ only has hard
yeah.
questions.
We got to see where this man stands with sour cream. Like,
Yeah. So, Ross, when you're coaching on a scale of every night to none, how many times do you have Taco Bell?
so Ross, you're gonna have to explain this to our viewers. Why is sour cream the best food to have before a race?
No context.
Yeah.
Asked in Carlton's voice.
Yep. And then
Anyway, that'll be fun to have him on.
we'll bring Carlton in and make it real cringe, like I did with Randy Popes.
Hey, I did not make that cringe. I'm just a big fan of Randy Popes, and he just got weirded out by it. I don't know what to tell you.
All right, Carlton. Maybe your button will be disabled for the Ross Bentley podcast, or maybe we'll just give him a heads up beforehand so it doesn't confuse him, or maybe we'll just confuse him because that's good content. I don't know.
I think it's great. All right, tell me about your weekend. You did real racing, real
I
driving.
did the Toledo Pro Solo event, and man, Tom, Mark Daddio is really good at this. He is so good. Like I ended up getting the fastest. First of all, first of all, uh, Matthew Braun and Daddio came like freaking flying right out of the gate, and that's like something I'm still like trying to figure out. I wasn't happy with any of my first like session runs. And then I felt like I did really good runs in the afternoon, but like it was like 96 degrees or something. It was like, Tom, it was so hot. It was like dangerous hot. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was really bad. It felt like time trial nationals that one year where we did it in June. That's what it felt
I
like.
don't Yeah, I've heard that the summer's gonna be really brutal and crazy weather, but to see it already being that way, like, I don't know if I even believe in them being able to predict what's gonna happen fully, because it seems like half the time they get it wrong, but the fact that they're already completely correct and that it's gonna be, like, hot, miserable, humid, and out of control, oh, it makes
Yeah.
me, like, less interested in planning events for the next 3 months,
Yeah.
to be completely
It
honest.
was pretty brutal. I felt pretty messed up by the end of that. So Um, but anyways, Sunday, like as most pro solo events, it comes down to just Sunday, and I felt great in my like headspace and my like drive to win mentality. And right off the rip, I put down the fastest right side run, and then somebody beat it by like a couple hundreds, Daddio, and then I just went even faster again on the right side. But my first run on the left, I think I was still had like some of the shakes and the adrenaline from my first right side run, and I made like a little mistake, and I was like, oh crap, and it was just the babyest of baby mistakes, but it kind of like set me like a little bit behind for some transitional element. So I think that like cost like 3 to 4 tenths right there, because the rest of the run went fine. And then by the time I got back to the left side, it was my very last run, and I think the tires were just cooked at that point because I felt like the run was really well executed, but like the time wasn't there. It ended up being my fastest left side run, but it was it was 4 or 5 tenths off of Daddio. So uh,
Yeah.
and Daddio did his first right side run and his first left side run, and those were like his fastest runs, and then he went slower after that. So I think like you had to get it done in the first two, and I think my mentality was like in the right spot. Just the execution wasn't there on that one side. So could I have taken him down? It was definitely within my skill set, but man, Mark Daddio makes you be like so spot on, or you're just not going to win. Like, and if you're gonna beat him, you have to be spot on. I don't. So at DC, he told me that his alignment slipped, and he lost like a degree of camber on his right front, and that was part of like why he was like, oh yeah, my car's just really pushy on the surface. So I think like cool, I beat him at DC, but I think that might be a legitimate excuse. So yeah, the hunt to try to beat Daddio is still on.
I just wrote down we gotta have him on, whether it's
Yes.
before or after nationals, so it doesn't, I don't know. You guys competitors, do you talk? Or you
No,
guys,
no,
like,
dude,
stand up?
Daddio's like so open. Like he shared exactly what bump
Yeah.
stops he's on, like what his shock settings are, like what he's tried, what he hasn't tried. Like he like laid it all out. Like Daddio is 100% just like a purebred competitor. Like he doesn't want to win because like the car advantage or anything. He just wants to outdrive everyone. And he like I don't know how old Daddio is, but when I grow up, I want to be Mark Daddio. That's he's like a purebred competitor, and like in every sense of the meaning in the word, and like like he's a competitor, and that's yeah. So and he doesn't he's not toxic about it at all. He's like super. Yeah, he's just honestly, he'd be a great podcast guest because yeah, nothing but respect for Daddio.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he's won multiple cars from autocross challenge stuff, like when they used to do those rev up events that were sponsored by Mazda or Chevy. Pretty sure he won multiple cars through that. I know he's done some road racing ventures and some like time attack and stuff, but
Yep.
I don't remember. I'll let him speak for himself when he comes on, but he had some interesting thoughts about why autocross specifically is the thing that captured him. I'm gonna guess he's probably in his early 50s at this point, so he's not like a young guy, but he's been doing it for so long. I know he comes from like, there's got to be some great stories from like pro solo back in the early 90s when there was like all Dodge Neons and everybody could win like $15,000 if they did a good job.
Yeah,
There's like so many cool stories from back
it would
then.
be cool to
We
hear
got to have
some
him on.
like autocross heyday stories for sure.
Yep.
He gave
Yeah.
Peter some advice where it was like you can get really fast when you're older, but you just can't stop. So like if
Sure.
like for example, if like Peter Schnorr ever feels burned out, that might just be it. like you can't stop. Like you have to just keep going and going and going. You can't have like a break and like get rust because you might never get back to where you were. But if you just keep going, you'll be fast for like a very long time.
It's interesting. Yeah, I can totally see that. It'll be kind of cool to go live that soon enough.
What do you mean?
You sooner than me. Ha! Because
Oh,
you're old.
dang it. Go, because we're getting old. Dang it.
No, I was also thinking about Pro Solo. If you're not familiar, you're not an autocross or whatever. It's a mirrored course, and you do 4 runs at a time, 2 runs on each side. So once you get in the car, you put your helmet on, you roll up to the line. It's a drag strip start with a tree, a Christmas tree, like yellow, 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 green. The only time you have between the launch and the cooldown of the previous run to the launch and the cooldown of the next run is however many cars is in front of you. And I don't think, I mean, there's no other autocross where you don't get out of the car and have some time to talk to somebody, check your tire pressures, prep the car, think about what happened. And I genuinely think autocross, as good and high value as it is in general, Pro Solo is probably the biggest challenge for a driver to do that self-assessment in real time
Yeah.
as quickly as it takes to pull from. I mean, it can't be more than 3 to 5 minutes on average, and sometimes it's less than that. So you have a very short period of time, and you have the adrenaline running through your body and the shakes sometimes if it was a good run. You can hear the announcer telling you how you did relative to everybody
It's
else.
intense.
You can also see the other car on the other side of the course. So like I'm horrible about this. Actually, tell me in a second, but I'm horrible where I have to look at the other car across the course
That's
when my eyes
crazy.
like when my eyes scan across it, I can't help but do it. Even when I was watching some of your videos, we have a bunch of a bunch of subscribers and stuff who were sharing their videos from this event. Even watching those videos, I can't help but flick my eyes across and see relative to where that person was, where was the other car on the other course that's perfectly mirrored across from them. I don't know why that is, other than kind of my observant brain, maybe. But what about you? Like, do you struggle with that at all?
Dude, I've never like purposely looked at the other car. That's like so next level. I'm like just trying not to get lost.
Nuh-uh, you're lying.
No,
You're not
I'm
trying to.
exaggerating a little bit.
Okay.
Little bit. Um, but I will notice like if it seems like they're in front of me on my peripheral, like every launch, it seems like Alex Peel was beating me.
Right.
But then I go look at the 60 foot in the reaction time, and I'm like, no, I don't like we were literally the same. So like it's not like he was like going like because in my peripheral, I feel like if I can see him in my peripheral, they're in front of me. But maybe that's just a sign of like this omega bandwidth unlock, and like I just like my vision goes like 270 degrees somehow, like it goes like fisheye lens or something, and I just like see him even though he's like right next to me.
I bet it's simpler than that. I bet it's we're sitting 3 feet back from the front of the car and we look at the front of the other car.
Yeah,
So
maybe,
it always looks like the other car's
but I'm
further
not
ahead.
looking at it.
Always.
I just see him in my peripheral. I just noticed that there's a thing there.
Yeah. It's tough. I miss it. I haven't done a pro solo. I was reminded actually, I did a pro solo in 2020 with Jason Tipple. And he messaged me after listening to the podcast, and he's like, "You liar! You didn't do a podcast, or you didn't do a pro solo since 2014. You did one with me in 2020." But I got to go back and do another one. That's so fun.
And then I missed the challenge by half a tenth.
Oh, 0.05.
Yep. So if I was
Brutal.
0.05 faster, I would have qualified for the challenge. And I mean, I only qualified for the challenge once this year. I ended up winning that one, but that won't be enough points or whatever going into the finale to have a shot at like the overall. So the Pro Solo finale will just be a really good test and tune and warm up for nationals. That's what that will be. So there's no like hope of like an overall win or anything like that. But yeah, it's just really really tough. Like we talked about in the last episode that like this was basically like the top 5-ish cars that's going to be at nationals, unless there's like some West Coast like ringers out there that are hiding somewhere. But like this is basically like that was basically nationals this weekend. So I ended up getting third, and Daddy-O was the strongest again, and then Alex Peel, he got me again, that bastard. So and barely, it was less than a tenth. And I just had a very weak left side, but my right side, like I said, was the fastest. So I can like kind of hang my hat on that. That on the right side, I was the fastest, but on the left, it was my kryptonite the whole weekend. But that's generally how pro solo goes: is you have a side that you really gel with, and then the other side is like your kryptonite. I don't know if I've ever had it where I'm like,
Sure.
feel equally great on both sides.
No, I don't remember ever feeling that way either. Honestly, Pro Solo kind of thwarted me throughout my entire autocrossing. Like when I was heavy focused on autocross or just dabbling, like having a good time. Pro Solo was never the thing that I clicked with the best. I think I came out of the gate a little too quick and I never figured out how to go quicker. So I would kind of usually lead the first session or I would be up there in the first session. You get 3 different sessions of 4 runs if you're following this. So Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. And Saturday morning would always go pretty well for me. Saturday afternoon usually felt pretty frustrating and Sunday morning I would just do the same thing again. And like I said before, I guess I wasn't the driver I think I am now. So it'd be kind of interesting to go back and see if I can find another level of understanding that I didn't know before. But best I can figure is I didn't try to drive quicker as like more rubber's getting laid down and as people are, you know, as the course conditions change from Saturday afternoon to Sunday morning, you can go a little quicker because it's in theory cooler.
Yeah.
I don't know what. There's a lot of moving parts with that doesn't really apply to any other form of
You know,
motorsports in my experience.
one thing that is helping me a lot this year, and if you're in the Discord, you've seen it where I have like my helmet cam thing. Uh Watching that and like trying to pick out this like difference of approach that I should try and stuff like that because I think it's important to be able to run through the run in your head. But if you if you also have video, like I don't think you should let that part of your brain get rusty. You should be able to run through the run in your head. But then also like being able to like watch the video before the next time you run, it's kind of a cheat code, Tom, because like in iRacing, I can do a lap, I can watch the lap, and I can really figure out, oh, I should change this or that, or oh, the tires weren't like making noise here, or whatever. I can like really dig down into like the theoretical changes I should make that should net more time because I'm optimizing the car better. And I'm doing that watching these autocross runs to my own runs. And then the game becomes just go out there and execute it. I've already like tweaked my game plan instead of just going based off of memory. I get that like actually see it and then tweak my game plan. It's kind of it's kind of a little bit of a game changer to be honest. Like I feel like so much more comfortable with what my game plan is when I go out. I just have to take the time to like critically think about my runs and how I can better optimize where the weight is on the car for a given element, or if it feels like there's dead space in an element, or I can and since the camera's on my head, I can be like, oh, I didn't get the correct angle on the thing because I didn't look at it. Like I can see it with the
Yeah.
angle of the camera if I actually looked at a cone that I intended to look at like during my course walk. And it's a little bit of a cheat code. And honestly, I think anybody that's not running helmet cam is at a little bit of a disadvantage.
How long till helmet cams get banned on autocross too?
You know what? If it did, I'd be like, okay, well, at least everyone's on like the same plane. But like, I'm telling you,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like really, really helpful.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I guess I never really used it as that. Um, I think it's interesting how we use our tools differently. Because I've had the same tools. I just don't use them that way.
The only problem is my GoPro, the new GoPro I got, I used to just open that GoPro app and just be able to download the videos. But now every time I have to resync the camera to the stupid phone, the phone always forgets the stupid camera because GoPro sucks. So if anybody knows
GoPro
a
sucks.
solution to like stupid GoPro BS, which I know nobody does because we all complain about the same things, but
I actually heard that's their new camera model, the GoPro BS. It's coming out soon.
what if it's just the Hero 4?
Yeah, it is. It's just the oldest version that they can still make work.
Yeah.
Oh God, with a new USB-C plug for charging. That's all it has. The only update.
Yep. Nice. Yeah.
I had something from this weekend too that I have to bring up.
Okay.
DJ, well, actually, we'll start with a little quiz. DJ, what is the line?
The line?
The line.
Like, are we talking about the racing line?
Sure. Yeah. What is it?
It's made up.
Oh, how dare you?
It
What do you
doesn't
mean?
it doesn't exist. The line could be the path your car takes while the weight is optimized through the through the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I bring this up because I watched a video from the Nürburgring 24 hour. It was this past weekend. and there was one of the lead cars, a GT3 car, was coming through and trying to pass a GT4 car. And you probably saw the video. They ended up the GT3 car like shoved it in a spot that the GT4 car like clearly didn't intend to let him do, but like didn't not let him do. And the GT3 car touched the GT4 car and it spun and then like hit the wall and bounced and like flipped over on its roof and then like slid across and now it's like stuck upside down, turtled on the racetrack. And I saw some really interesting topic like conversation about how like the Aston was just going for his line or or like whatever you know the tropes. And then I experienced it like literally within the same 6 hours maybe when I was playing my little sim rig here, my favorite thing. And I was driving a race right behind somebody else and somebody turned in a slower class, actually funny enough another GT4 Aston Martin turned in trying to go for, and he messaged me after because I hit him. He turned in and I hit him because I was already there. And he messaged me after. He's like, I was going for my line, dude. Come on. I was going for my line.
Obviously, Tom, he was going for his line. You know, everyone knows Aston Martins are the bastions of lines.
Dut, 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 dut. Oh, they're Honda now. Never mind. So I think like my first thought was, tell me you don't know what's going on without saying I don't know what I'm doing. If you're like, I was going for my line, and then
How
you
dare
just like do whatever.
How dare you be in that spot that I intended to be?
Right. Cause like, okay, sure, you were going for your line. I'll just let you be in a vacuum. And then I guess like screw me, right? I wanted to bring that up because I just think it's such it's a persistent conversation that I will never understand the justification for, because in wheel to wheel racing, the line does not exist. The line does not mean that you have right to that spot. The line does not mean that that person has priority over somebody else. That is like, that's such a farce. That's such a made up, immature way to look at racing. But I watched it happen and then I experienced it happen both in the same like 6 hours. And I just had to bring it up because I'm
This
like, man, what?
this goes
Yeah,
back to the like I forget what we called that episode. The what did we call the racecraft episode?
the actual art of
The
racecraft.
actual art of craft episode. That was 2 episodes ago, where Tom was talking about being like the slower class and like no faster car, very few faster cars have passed Tom in a way that he didn't intend for them to pass. And that's
Yeah.
because Tom is very deliberate with where he puts his car, where it communicates to the faster car, this is how I intend for you to get around me. Any other way is going to be slower for you.
Yeah, and I actually, you just reminded me. There's another part of the weekend. I was watching the 6 hours from Watkins Glen, and it was GTP is the fastest class, then LMP2, which are prototypes but slower. And they're basically the same speed as GT3 cars in a straight line, but they're faster in turns. And then the GT3 cars. So there's three different cars sharing the track, and I was watching the way that the GT3 drivers, specifically like the pros in the GT3 cars, were treating the LMP2s, which are again faster in the corners, but basically the same speed down the straights. And if you can go back and watch the highlights, you don't even have to go watch the whole race. You can just watch the highlights probably and see some of this. The way the GT3 drivers made the LMP2 cars' lives absolutely miserable on purpose. Like they might as well have been having their finger hanging out the window the whole time and just like, screw you, but I'm not doing anything
that
for you. Like
is that because it benefited their race against the other people in their own class?
exactly.
That's ruthless.
They would not at all let the LMP2 cars go where it made sense for the LMP2 car to want to go. They made them do what they needed them to do for their own race, meaning the GT3 drivers made the LMP2 cars do what the GT3 car would benefit from. And that means staying in their way, getting in their way early, putting themselves in a position where they are now like two moves ahead in the chess game of racecraft. It was just like, it hit me pretty hard watching that race. Like, damn, these guys are, first of all, they get it, and they're so good at making themselves the problem for the other driver to make their lives easier. And I
So
think if some of this stuff doesn't make sense, and you're listening to this and you're like, it doesn't fully make sense. If you go watch that, I think it will make sense
if you were the
to see that.
LMP2 driver, how would you approach that situation?
I'd be pissed. I'd be so mad. But also, you kind of have to learn, like, in general, it was interesting to watch them like barrel in. Like they're a little faster on the brakes, they're faster in the corners, but they're not really faster under acceleration. And it was interesting to watch the LMP2 drivers not. I mean, sometimes there's just like 50 cars in the same corner because it's IMSA and there's restarts and all this. But
Yeah.
you didn't see the LMP2 cars plan ahead for this very often to use their speed in a way that was productive. They would like go through the corner right behind the GT3 car and then like just be stuck there
and
again
then
for
have
another
nowhere to
short little
go. Right.
straightaway.
So this comes into our
Yeah.
conversation of where you give yourself a little space so you can take up that space with like a run out of the corner, because that's where the LMP2, like the LMP2 car would be faster on the straight beat just because they have a higher min speed on the corner, so they would have a little bit of a roll on the GT3 cars and be able to get by. The other thing they can do is they can whip out their Oscar winning performance and act like they're freaking crazy, and it's not in the GT3's best interest to get in this guy's way.
That's fair, but also the LMP2 cars are like little they're like a china cabinet compared to a GT3
Maybe,
car.
maybe, but
They
I'm in
lose
that.
all the time, every
Tom,
time
I'm
if
in
they
the
touch.
LMP2 car, and I'm crazy. I'm crazy. You have no idea what I'm gonna do, Tom. Woo! I'm coming. Choo choo.
Yeah, but if you're crazy with class bones, what are you gonna do?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. I'm crazy. I haven't thought about the consequences.
All right. I want to see DJ. Guys, we got to crowdfund DJ to race an LMP2 car.
You know
See
what?
how this
I'll
goes.
sign up for this. You will never see a crazier LMP2. Well, maybe that one guy in the American flag livery LMP2 that spun like 20 times. Maybe he
Yes.
would be crazier.
Dwight Merriman.
But
Oh, God.
I will come in second
I
to
bet he
craziness
listens.
to that guy.
Yeah.
You'll see me just weaving for no reason. They'll be like, maybe something's wrong with this car, and nobody's near me, and I'm just like looking crazy on the straightaway.
That's funny.
Like the crew chief would
Yeah,
literally tune in and be like, "Hey, this LMP2, he's been looking a little crazy all race. Might want to just let him through."
wait, I'm going to try to do my iRacing spotter voice. Move over. The car behind is wild.
It's wild.
How
It's
did I do?
something wild.
The car behind is out of control. Move over.
I feel like we need a Tom spotter pack. Kevin Zhu told us there's like a how-to on the iRacing forums of recording a spotter pack, and we should definitely do that.
I like a Lizard Brains podcast spotter pack.
Yeah. We got to give back to
All right,
the
I'm down.
subscribers. I think that's the way. So, yeah.
So that was really my only thing from the weekend that stood out. I wanted to bring that up. But we have some really good questions.
Yeah.
Could we do those?
Yeah, let's jump into those. Emails.
You were so quick on that button. Damn.
I was ready.
Ready.
We joked around that this was the podcast that had the knockoff Russ before Ross Bentley, because we're recording that one tomorrow and it's coming out next week.
Yep.
But I don't know. I'm feeling ready. Like, I'm ready. Get Ross in here, Tom.
I'll text him. Hey, Russ, out of bed.
Russ,
hurry, go.
Sorry, we need you ASAP.
All right, so I want to start with this one because it kind of it maybe correlates a little bit to the mental health podcast I was on with Devin. It's called The Break Check. It's linked on social media, but this is from one of our subscribers, Andy, and he said, personally, I find the mental side of this hobby incredibly interesting. So I'm wondering how your mindset may differ on a practice day, a sim day, a competition day, etc., and how do you set intentions, quote unquote, lock in, etc. It's also, how do you not let yourself take this way too seriously and spiral out of control?
Man, hold on. My stepmom's an executive coach, and she talks about, like, honestly, she could have her own Lizard Brains podcast, to be honest. And she sent me a link of like 2 different ways. Here it is. So there's, hold on. You answer the question. I'm going to read this so I can reacquaint myself with
Yeah, sure.
these terms that she was throwing at me.
So when it comes to how does my mindset differ on a practice versus a like playing on the simulator versus competition, I guess I don't know if I'm lucky or if I'm maybe a little naive or something, but I don't typically have to actively think about my mentality when it comes to what the day is for. And maybe that's just maybe I have a little bit of foresight for what the day is for. But when it comes to a practice day versus a simulator day, or a day that's not in competition, where there's not a result sheet at the end of the day, where I feel like I'm going to be measured or I want to measure myself, I really don't take those very seriously. I think I usually start by going out wherever I'm at, and I guess going out and seeing where I'm at is a better way to say it, and then I start to pick off the low hanging fruit. I really don't try to set a lot of expectations for myself to go in and say, this is the thing that I'm going to work on. I try to let the thing that I'm going to work on show up first and then start there. And I think that might be a little different than what a lot of people do or what a lot of people think they should do, which is a big difference. And then there's a different thing about competition days, and I don't know what it is specifically, but I'm generally pretty good at it. To me, it relates to like standardized testing, right? Like if you're, I was never a good student. I'm terrible at studying. I don't get it. I don't understand what the point is. I'm wasting my time. But when it comes to standardized test day or when it comes to test day, like I'm locked in. I'm gonna remember things I never studied. I'm gonna like there's just a there's a thing about that where like now I kind of want to like be diagnosed on this or something. Like somebody share what they think about this. But when it comes to competition, there's a different mode when you get in the car, when I get in the car, I should say, and I tend to look like straightforward and I sort of like lock my eyes on the windshield and then I like refocus my eyes forward and I take a deep breath and that's like the last thing I do on grid before I put the car in gear and drop the clutch and roll out. Um, but that's not what locks me into competition. It's just a thing on a competition day versus a practice day that I do. And I honestly sometimes have a hard time, specifically with the simulator, in locking in to take it seriously. You saw this last night. Like we were sim racing last night together, and
We were
I
chatting.
forgot to.
We were
We were
chatting
chatting
and
and bullshitting and
BSing
whatever,
and yeah.
and I forgot to change my setup to have enough fuel for the race. So I like realized on the second lap I have to pit and go through for like a 15-minute race or whatever it was. But I was like kind of clocked out, and then as soon as that happened, it clocked out completely. And then I spun, and then I alt F forward because I was just like, oh, this is stupid. This is boring. I'm going to take my 30 minutes back and go do something else. That to me, those types of things wouldn't happen and don't happen most of the time on a competition day when I've like already seen the competition coming. And again, I don't really know why. So I'm curious your thoughts on this because to me it's not really a that conscious of a thing. And I don't really know why, but
So
that's just my experience.
my approach to the practice day, the sim, the competition, the national championships, the thing, whatever, all that stuff, if you attempt to quote unquote lock in on every single one of them, then that's a way better practice than
Yeah.
just all of a sudden trying to like up your game for like the competition day. So every practice, every sim race, everything, just make it a habit for maximum effort. So just, you know what? I'm gonna try my hardest, even though like I might look silly. Like when you show up to a local with tire sprayers and tire blankets, and you're like checking the pressures, and you're doing all this, like at an autocross event, and you're just like going like way, and everyone's just sitting there with their like tape numbers, going like, what is up with this guy? Doesn't matter. You're not practicing for them. You're practicing for you, right? Like
Yeah.
yeah. Like so when you're doing quali and iRacing and you're hanging out with the buds in Discord and you mute your mic, like that's fine. Just make maximum effort the norm, the thing that you do all the time. And then when it comes to when you get to the competition, for me, it should be treated like I just discussed with as the same as like the practice. And during these practices, you're not aiming for a result, you're aiming to learn as much as possible. You're aiming to grow. At the competition, it's the same thing. You're aiming to grow, you're aiming to learn, you're aiming to still do your best, but you're still a sponge and you're still trying to take in as much information as possible. There shouldn't be like an aimed result. It should be what are the learnings and things I'm going to take away from this. Um, there's two different approaches. There's like, and it kind of goes with like the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And we've had a podcast on this. I don't know what episode, so maybe somebody in the chat could help us. But when you go in with a growth mindset, there's two things that happen. One, there's gonna be a lot of pressure taken off of you because, honestly, you really don't have control over whatever your result is. All you have control over is your own performance. So just like that's all you can and should be focusing on is whatever your own performance is. That the results, you don't know if freaking Daddy-O's gonna show up. Like what are you gonna do if Daddy-O shows up? Like, are you good enough so far? Like, no? Okay, well, there's stuff to learn, right? Like I think that's what you have to take from that. If you're going in aiming at a result, you put more pressure on yourself. You don't open yourself up to learn the things that you could be learning otherwise, and you're going to take away less from that. So to me, the practice, sim racing, local, big race, big national championship, it should all be the same thing. It should be I'm going to learn as much as I can from this thing, and I'm going to try my maximum hardest in all those things.
Yeah, as you say that, I guess I do. As maybe contrarian to this is what I just said sounds. What I just said is that I don't actively think of practice or competition differently, but that I think maybe is a bit of an advantage because I do take every single time I get in the car and put my helmet on as seriously as any other day. And that's not to say that, I mean, obviously for maybe nationals or something, there's a little bit more active thought, or honestly there's more like active studying going on where I try to watch cars on course a little bit more, and I try to maybe talk to a couple people and like really look out for gotcha spots, or I really try to uh for wheel to wheel, I try to really think about ahead of time, like what happens when the green flag drops relative to where I'm at, or where does the green flag going to come out? Was there already a race that I can go watch the green flag drop, and now I kind of know where that's going to happen rather than be surprised. Like there's probably more serious stuff off the track that uh, I take for real competition days that are important to me in my head versus just the day at the track. But on the flip side of that, I definitely have that, like that every single time the helmet goes on, I treat it the same. I want every single time I drive the car to be the national championship winning or the race winning run
Yeah.
or drive. And I completely agree. Like you have to take it that seriously. There can't be days where you're lazy. Or we had a subscriber share their video from this weekend. They're like, "Yeah, I'm not really happy with this. I didn't walk the course. It was hot. I just like decided not to, and I thought I would just get an okay run in. And I'm really disappointed with my weekend." Like that's the kind of stuff to me you have to watch out for a little bit more than what do I treat a practice day like versus a competition day.
Yeah. I think
Um,
I think also you it's you you have to like for example when you were saying like I go watch like the green flag of some other race or watch other cars or and maybe if you went to an HPDE obviously you can't go watch where the green flag is, but there's other aspects of that where you can bring the intensity that would normally come with a wheel to wheel race, like maybe you add that intensity to yourself, like and we know, and we've discussed this before, like you should figure out what your optimal quote unquote RPM is. Like how stimulated do you need to be to get like your peak performance? And if
yeah.
and if you're at like a local or HPD or whatever and your RPM's too low, then you need to figure out how to like bump that RPM up so you're getting like maximum performance. And then if you're at like the national championships or like some big race or whatever, you have to notice when your RPM's too high and you got to like bring it down a little bit so you're going to have your optimal performance. So like those are going to be the differences between like the practice day and the competition day. And maybe that's like the advice to be like locked in or whatever. But you need to figure out like what the optimal like stimulation is to understand where like your peak performance is going to come out of, and then figure out ways to get to that, whether you listen to pump up music or calm music or like psych yourself up, or maybe like slap yourself really hard on the chest so you get like a little spike of adrenaline from the pain or something. Like you got to do something, right? Like figure out your own thing. And honestly, I would love to see in the comments of like what is your thing to like chill or bump up or whatever, because everyone's going to have a different thing. You got to figure out what like works for you.
Yeah, and your thing could be like it could be like an hour-long process, to be honest. I think
That
mine's
sounds
pretty close to
exhausting.
like, well, but to, like it's all small stuff. To me, I guess I haven't written this routine for a little while, but mine started with when I get dressed, I'm listening to certain music. And then I'm getting dressed early enough to be the first car in grid, and then I'm out of the car until the last second in grid. Like that's what I'm saying. That process for me plays out over a period of 40 to 60 minutes
Yeah.
versus other people, they might have a completely different process.
Yeah, you
But
got to figure out what
it
works for
takes
you.
it there's a lot more there. It's not just like the moment before you get in the car or something. Like there's a lot more with that. There's also something that came up on the Break Check podcast with Devin about mental health, that or as it pertains to motorsports. that I wish I would have hit on a little bit better. So I'll say it here. Um, the the realization that I would build expectation versus building a plan was a big like realization for me over time, and it wasn't even that active of a thing, but it was a passive learning process over, let's say, the first 10 years of driving, going from local autocross to trying to win a championship to winning a championship to getting into club racing. And that over that period of time, I would fall into the trap of building an expectation for what I wanted to happen rather than building a plan to execute what I wanted to happen. Sounds like the same thing, but it's completely not. And like building the plan around the execution so that you get the result, or that you set yourself up to get the result that you want, rather than just like, this is the result I want. uh as silly as it sounds, I was not good at that for a long time, and I would still be successful sometimes, but not that often, not nearly as often as now.
Yeah.
um and I think that's a really powerful ability to manipulate your mentality just slightly, to say like, I hope this happens, but I can't expect that to happen. Here's the plan for what I'm going to do to execute that, to end up turning my like hope into a reality, rather than
Or just the
just like
plan to
whatever
like,
happens happens.
yeah, the plan to like execute maximum performance, right? Like
Yeah,
whatever your maximum performance is on that day, not like the theoretical best maximum performance if all the stars aligned for you, but whatever your maximum performance is on that day. Because as a race car driver, like that's what we should be doing. Is you should just be trying to maximize whatever you're given.
you're a race car driver.
Yeah.
Can I have your autograph?
No.
By the way, your haircut looks great.
Oh, thanks.
Sleek and
This is
suave.
the haircut. This is pre-wedding haircut. That's
There
what
you
this
go.
is. Yeah. It was extra high stakes on this. I made sure the person cutting my hair knew the stakes of what was happening. And then she went, okay, and then just cut my hair. It's just a buzz
Yeah,
cut.
yeah, yeah. Okay, guy.
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
so the second layer of the question, this one's way more interesting to me almost. How do you not let yourself take this way too seriously and spiral out of control? I've never seen you do this. Does this ever happen to you? Has this happened to you?
I feel like I try to think about stuff logically. So like you're like getting ready and listening to the same music, and that like kind of borders on like superstition kind of thing. Like to me, that's like taken out of control when you're like, I need to have my lucky socks. Like somebody freaking out, like you know what I mean?
Sure.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like to me, that is so Phil in the chat just asked label out of control. To me, that's out of control because like those socks have no bearing on
Yeah.
your performance. So this weekend I stayed at my dad's house, and when I left my dad's house, I accidentally left my helmet and my shoes there, and they weren't going to get to the site on time on Sunday. And Sunday's by far the most important runs for Pro Solo. So I'm doing my runs in my sneakers and somebody else's helmet. And to me, like the way that I could have been out of control, if it's like I need my shoes, and I tried to get them because I realized that they are like a slight advantage because they're like it's what I'm used to, but it didn't like make me spiral out of control because I didn't have the shoes I've been driving in for like the last like 7 years or whatever. I was just like, well, sometimes I hop on the sim rig with like sneakers and like it's good enough. Like I just have to make the most of whatever I have right now. So if you're starting to think things matter when it's kind of superstitious, or like in actual reality. Like Peter Schnorr is totally guilty of this. He like obsesses over the fuel level in the car, and I'm like
Dabble.
Peter. 12 pounds of fuel is not going to be the difference if we win or lose. Like, you know what would be the difference if we fuel starve? Like that's like that's like the actual like difference, and or the mental stress of like worrying about it is probably going to have more of effect than 12 pounds when like we could both lose 12 pounds, like if we really cared about that weight that much, like but like so we shouldn't care about these things that don't matter, but you need to be able to recognize the things that do matter and whether it's worth it wherever you're at on your journey.
cut to nationals this year when you and Peter both have like you've lost 12 pounds, you're down to skin and bones, but you've been doing neck exercises like an F1 driver, and your veins out of your neck are pulsing and bulging because it's like, oh, I'm ready for nationals.
Look, if I think it's gonna come down to a couple like thousandths of a second, you're just gonna see DJ show up without like a left leg. Like we're good.
Yeah, right. I'm way more prone to spiraling out of control. To answer Phil's question, what is define out of control or what is out of control? I think prior to getting in the car, out of control is fixating on things that you can't control or fixating on things that you are, for lack of a better term, looking at the wall. Like, you start to spin. If you look at the wall, you're going to hit the wall. If you had thought like, I don't have my shoes, this is gonna be a disaster.
Oh yeah,
I'm gonna lose.
and then
Like
it
you're
probably
looking at
would
the
have been.
wall.
It probably would have been a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So learning coping mechanisms to either like observe that that's happening and be able to get out of it in your head. Plug on my mic. Die.
Oh,
Missed
gross.
it.
Do you like
Um,
shove it into the grill?
no, I missed it.
Okay, good.
But I'm way more prone to it being after the fact. I have an issue spiraling, and I apologize for it being a repeat from the break check podcast. But the 15-minute rule helps me a lot with that. The goal with the 15-minute rule for me is isolate myself for 15 minutes and use that time to identify why I'm spiraling, identify why I'm dissatisfied with what happened, come up with a plan to fix it. And then once I have that plan to fix it, I have to put it out of my head. I use my mom's like, what do I control? What can I control? What can I not control? And I like do the assessment of what can I control. And then once I have that figured out, you can't dwell on it anymore.
Yeah.
And I still do sometimes, but
That's
it's
just
like
because we're human,
you're
though.
past the point. Yeah, exactly. It's not like an unhealthy thing. I think it's just you have to go through that little process. And if you're like me and you're prone to that kind of thing, then at least this is what helps me. But for the most part, I think it happens to me after the fact more so than before. If it happens to you before, my only advice is to try to observe that the same way that you would observe like maybe I'm not hitting the right brake pressure or the peak brake pressure on my early laps of a session, and I need to like lock into like even if the corner sucks, just like dial in brake pressure first, get in that rhythm, and then move on. Uh, if you can observe like something is a consistent trigger or whatever, there's so many variables. Insert your thought here.
But
If you can observe like
you-
that spiral is starting to happen before the fact,
Yeah.
then you're on the first step to fixing it. And then there's so many variables to what that could be. There's so many solutions too to what it could be. I don't know that I can answer that concisely.
adding what you said, like there's like physical like feelings of when you start to spiral out of control, and like noticing those, like when you start to become like where you're gonna act in a way that like you're not proud of. Like there's like a tightness in your chest. You can like almost like feel blood in your face, right? Like there's like all these physical, and then so like Phil asked like, well, what's the line between passion and somebody just upset that they lost? We've talked about this before. I'm going to touch on that in a second, but I wanted to finish my point on the physical effects of that. If you can notice that like these physical effects of like you losing your cool is happening, then that's where Tom's like 15-minute thing comes into play. Just like literally just like it could be a porta potty. Like it doesn't really matter what it is. Like you just need to isolate yourself for a little while. So you can just process it just like Tom explained, and then move forward. The thing about motorsports, and this is probably the best advice you'll ever get from this podcast, is that the community is so tiny, and the way you act is remembered by every single person. It's and they'll remember it forever. So if you going on to your where's the line between passion and someone being upset that they lost? We've had this conversation before where if you lose, but somebody like, if you lost, that means somebody else won, right? Like, even assuming it's a competition. That person don't take away from their win by being the person that's a sore loser. Like, go up and congratulate that person and add to their enjoyment. And someday, when you're in their position, you will be very grateful when somebody else comes up and congratulates you and tells you how great of a job you did. And because it adds to this enjoyment that they already had. It's like a multiplier. Like, Tom, when I beat you in GLTC that one time, well, 2 times, but one time I actually had to race you for it.
Okay,
You beat
yeah.
me all the other times. Um, and and we finished the race. I'm first, you're second, and you like jumped through my window to congratulate me. That was like a 10 times multiplier on the like euphoric joy that I was already feeling because I didn't have to worry about if my competitors were upset that I won or anything like that. Like it was just like you added to it. And I'll always remember that and always think highly of you for that. So, in a moment of loss, when you lose, it is an opportunity for you to go congratulate the person who got the better of you that day and add to that enjoyment, and they'll remember that more than they ever would remember you beating them.
Sure. Yeah, and if you can do that consistently, that makes you a very big person, in my opinion. I'll put my hand up first and say, for every time that I've done that for you, to you, whatever, I've probably like neglected doing that to like 5 other people.
Yeah. It's
Honestly,
hard to
on that
do.
very same on that literal same weekend, the prior race, Eric Catil, he was behind me for like 5 of the 6 laps, but the entire race I knew he was gonna pass me, and he finally got around me. And I didn't do that to him because I was like spun up in my head and about like I was literally looking at the wall figuratively the whole race. I knew he was gonna win. And then when he won, like I didn't have it in me to go like jump through his window and
Yeah.
celebrate because I was more focused on like why did I lose? Why did I know I was going to lose? Why was I so fixated on him getting around me? What went wrong? All these things, you know. Uh, so you can't be perfect with it, but I
No,
agree with you. I
it's
think,
what I said is something to strive for because to
yeah,
me that's
exactly.
like the ideal behavior, and I'll be the first to admit that I don't do that all the time too. Like sometimes I'll lose, and I just need to go be off by myself. And if you've beaten me and you didn't get like congrats, you did a great job for me, it's because like I'm dealing
A
with
dick.
my own like I'm being upset. But
Yeah,
one thing I hope I've never done, and I'm sure I have, is when somebody beats me, I'm like mad at them, right? Like that's the worst thing. And you never feel great after that. You just feel like a sore loser.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree. I don't know that I have more thoughts on that, but I hope that's helpful, Andy.
Yeah. Cool. Good question, Andy.
Yep. All right, switch topics. This one's for you.
Hmm.
Ready?
Yeah.
This is from David. Uh, DJ's corner charging comment hit home this week as I've recognized one of my bad habits is quote unquote trying harder, where I continue to break later and harder. While I recognize that it's happening, I've been unsuccessful in resetting during the event. Do you have any expanded tips for resetting slash getting away from charging corners? DJ said back things up a bit. Anything else recommended or something to focus on to climb out of that mentality? I've tried turning off timing, but my internal clock kicks in instead. It also happens in autocross, but to a lesser extent.
I think keeping
Track and
timing
autocross.
on would be the move. And then the thing that you should be focused on, David, it's David Entz, by the way. You know, I met David in Forza, like in like 2000, like 10 or
Oh
2011,
shit.
or no, not that
Okay.
early. No, because I was playing Halo. Like 2014, 2015 is when I met David on Forza. It was before I was even sim racing. So it's pretty cool. We met at an autocross event like only a couple years ago, and he's like, "I'm Margaritaville," and I'm like, "Whoa, no way!" um. Anyways, I think keeping the timer on and doing and getting in the habit of like a constant experimentation is the way that you get out of that because it sounds like you're getting in like a box. Like you've convinced yourself like this is the way this needs to happen, and you haven't left yourself open for like giving things different approaches. Like we should be constantly experimenting like throughout the lap. And then when you do get the corner, you'll be like, that was it. Right? Like, oh, okay, so just do that every time.
Sure. Um, I took it a little differently. He's saying it doesn't sound like it sounds like the question is not like how do I identify the problem, but how do I actually implement a solution to the problem? Because I'm recognizing the problem while it happens, but I don't know how to solve it.
Yeah, so
until I like.
I'm saying just change the whole approach in general so the problem can't like manifest into like a thing that you're stuck on.
So you're saying that you're perceiving him fixating on the time, whether there's a display or not.
No, no, no.
Oh,
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
he might be fixating on the time. That might be like why the trying harder approach is like coming into play. But instead of like quote unquote trying harder, it should like we should be like experimenting with like different approaches like throughout the lap, and it should be like we should be focusing on our accuracy of like executing those different approaches, and that's what's going to net the faster time is when we experiment enough to understand what works, what doesn't work, what has been faster. That's why I'm saying I don't think you should turn the timer off because that's your immediate feedback of like, oh, how did that go?
True. Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking through this. Uh, I mean, to define why braking later and later doesn't work, obviously you miss the corner at a point, but the first thing that starts to happen is your brake release starts to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as your brake release starts to deteriorate, you lose the order of operations through the rest of the corner from turn in to apex to track out, whatever else, however you want to define that for yourself. So if you fall into the trap of braking later and later and later, you have to understand that the consequence is not like going too fast when you get to the corner. It's my ability to like manipulate the weight of the car into the corner goes away.
Yeah.
So my thought process with this was like the first thing I do is I back the brake marker up. Like let's say I'm braking at the 2 and I'm braking at the 2 and I'm braking at the 2 and I'm braking at the 2 for whatever corner it is. And I'm just like I'm picking up on the fact that I'm braking too late, or I'm like fixated on braking too late. I just change it to braking before the 2, and that's all I say to myself. I'm just going to brake before the 2. And I do that as long as it takes to rebuild the muscle memory of getting off the brake and getting the rest of the corner right. And then like I don't want to say 50-50, but a lot of times you can go back to braking at the 2, and once you've built the muscle memory back with figuring out like what the brake release needs to feel like so that the car rolls into the corner correctly, you don't even need to think about braking a little earlier than the 2 anymore. You can just like kind of fix everything by reverse engineering that.
Yeah.
That's the way my process works. I don't even have to think about it more detailed than that. It's just like if I'm struggling with X corner, brake a little earlier, and that I don't even think about the brake release. I don't think about anything else. It's just the one thought to like move the fixation from the brake point to a different brake point or whatever you want to call that. Uh, that starts to rebuild the process of the puzzle for the rest of the corner. And actually, we had another subscriber this weekend talk about they went to an autocross event and their goal was to brake lighter and earlier. And whether it was the course or the weekend or whatever, it worked out really well that they didn't overdrive all weekend and they didn't overdrive every run. They were nice and clean and tight and tidy and everything. It to me sometimes it's simpler than overthinking all this stuff. It can just be like I'm just going to focus on moving that brake just literally like instead of at change the word to before, and then like you've set yourself up for success for everything that happens after that.
Yeah, I think what
In
happens
my mind.
is you actually you open up that input window to have the weight be efficient at turn in. Like that the ability to do that, the input window is so much larger. So you're just more
Yeah.
likely to get it right. And then like Tom was saying, once you like start getting it right, then you can like start shrinking down that input window again by like breaking a little bit later, a little bit later, a little bit later. And then if the input window gets to the point where like you can't get into it anymore, then you just need to back it up a little bit where you can consistently get into that input window to effectively use the weight to maximize the car on turn in, apex, exit, right? If you're noticing that you're not able to effectively use the weight, then you're probably just braking too late. Like it's like a symptom of the problem.
Yes. Diego in the chat said sometimes when I fuel save in endurance races, I end up going slower when I try to go back to braking normally.
I feel
And
that.
on the flip side, when I fuel save in enduros, I end up going faster. I'm putting words in his mouth, but sometimes when I fuel save in enduros, I end up going faster than when I wasn't trying to. That's 100% happened to me before. I think
Yeah.
I've shared on the podcast the story of like running up a gear at Thunder Hill, right, where I like had to do 2 hours worth of driving or not two, one full tank of gas worth of driving in fourth, majority fourth instead of third, or I would go to fifth instead of fourth. Everything was one gear up, and I was trying to break this 2-minute mark all weekend and I couldn't do it. And as soon as I switched from fuel saving and running up a gear and focusing on momentum and maximizing that lap time, which I got myself down to like a 2 minutes, point 0.8 doing that. As soon as I went back to the normal gears, under 2 minutes right away, first lap. And I don't think I would have got there if I didn't do the exercise to drive based on momentum, which is actually better to say driving the weight of the car better rather than attacking everything 10 out of 10.
Yeah. It might actually be a good approach to like really dial in a lap is where you just kind of back everything up a little bit and focus on the way the weight is moving around the edge of the car and like what's the relationship with the tires on the road for each like phase of the corner and really just like dial that in and just like to give yourself a little bit more room to play with that you just like back all the braking zones up like a half a car length and then you get that like little extra wiggle room.
And y'all, it literally takes, when I said change the word from at to before, like that's all it takes. We're talking like within a car length, 2 car lengths. If you go like, oh, I'm going to brake at the 250 instead of the 2,
That's
that's
too much.
way too big of a change.
Yeah.
Way too big of a change. Like it's literally just like think of it just ever so slightly different. And then you'll realize like that extra car length or two gives you the chance to be way more in control of the car when it matters. And then you can probably go back to braking at the 2 and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, I kind of want to try this. I just think it would be a good exercise to just do. Like I think that might be just a good thing to like okay, I feel like I've like dialed in a lap. Well, let's move everything back like a half a car length and like let's see what the timer does.
I think for the first practice session of this weekend's GLTC race, everybody should run one gear up all the time and then see what happens, including the Corvettes. They're going to be in sixth.
I can't wait to see Kyle Heyer's commentary. Oh, there isn't commentary. Oh, that's such a
No,
bummer that
there's
they're not
not.
broadcasting Mid Ohio. But I was thinking I could see his commentary now. These racers out here are getting phenomenal fuel mileage.
It's like those Gran Turismo challenges. Go as far as you can on 10 gallons or
Yeah.
1 gallon or whatever. So yeah, David, try that. See if it works. Let us know if it works.
Yeah,
Let us know if you think of something that we didn't say just now. I'm
whenever
curious.
whenever we give you guys a feedback like this, like we want to hear if whatever we said
Yeah.
worked and what part of it worked. Please.
We're not just right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just talking about what we think.
Yeah, but we want that feedback so we can know if like this thing that we talked about, like, oh, that totally resonated with me, that worked or that didn't. Like, please give us that feedback so we can be better at this. Like that's kind of hopefully that's the attitude of this whole podcast is that you should be craving that feedback to get better at the thing, whatever it is you're doing.
Yep. All right, you pick one. Well, maybe one more. What do you think?
Yeah, one more. That sounds good. I'm looking. Um, Okay, I'm gonna pick this one not because I know the answer, but because I want to know what Tom says. Danny Corliss writes in, says,
Oh, I was hoping you picked this one. Okay, cool.
okay, would you agree that a car with softer suspension is easier and more natural to drive because of how obvious and predictable the weight transfer feels? How do you know when you need to stiffen things up to gain a performance edge? Enlighten us, Tom.
Ooh.
Because I'm sure
All right,
there's like a window, like right, like there's probably like, but how do you know? I'm thinking of like Ito C6 Z06, like before he put the suspension on, and then after. I think he completely missed the window. Like he was on the soft end, and then he just like flew past on the whole operational window and ended up on the stiff end.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. The first thing I thought of with this is what does the driver expect out of a car? All right, so if you put an any age person in a go-kart and you teach them how to drive in a go-kart and they're used to no suspension, basically the weight transfer is your muscles and your body and then like the squidginess of the tires, and you teach somebody how to drive that way and then like their entire experience is this is how a car feels, and then you put them in a super soft car, they're going to be completely flummoxed. They're going to be like, what the hell is this? I don't understand. Like, why are my door handles on the ground? Why do I feel like I'm going to flip?
Yeah,
Like, I've experienced this firsthand, especially with kids.
I
Kids don't
turn
understand
and it
weight
doesn't
transfer when they
turn.
come from karting. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Versus like I personally, my experience is I freaking love big floppy soft cars. But my experience comes from the first cars that I autocrossed were completely stock NV Miata for a season with my dad. then a completely stock 97 Civic by myself, on grippy-ish tires, whatever they were at the time. You want to guess what they were at the time?
Hoosiers?
Ooh, you're never gonna get this. Nope. It was a Kumo.
Oh, was it the V? No, it was whatever the Kumo Slick was.
Yeah. Victo Racer.
Victo Racer. That sounds
Oh,
like a cyberpunk like band.
da, 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 da. Victo Racer. That's like such a good name. But all right, so we were just buying used takeoffs of Victo Racers or whatever. So my experience for years, and then the first rides that I got were, I drove an H Street Civic and an H Street Mini, and whatever else. The first time I drove the first time I was confronted with this was a Formula Ford when I autocrossed one, and there's like very little suspension travel, very little weight, but you're doing the same sport, autocross, where you're like slaloming and stuff, and the lack of weight transfer threw me off big time. Like it was so weird to feel this lack of weight transfer under my body versus, I was so used to that body roll and stuff. And when I say body roll, it actually plays out to like the timing of the input relative to when it happens. Like that's all weight transfer is when I put the input into the wheel or the throttle, how long does it take to go through the entire system of the car down to the ground? And for a soft car, it takes a long time. So you do the inputs early and you get them when you want. For a stiff car, you do them pretty much instantaneously and it more or less does what you ask. So that was a lot of words to say. I think it more or less has to do at the ground level with what a driver expects. Now, to his question, is it more natural to drive a soft car? I think for most of us, yes, because we're used to driving street cars first, and then we're used to probably not driving that modified of a car for however long it takes you to modify your car. Is that fair to say?
I
Like
will say
you're not just going throwing on 1,000-pound springs like the first mod you do.
whenever I jump into like a H Street or a G Street or even like a E Street Miata or something like that, it is a little bit of a shock
Yeah,
of like trying to get like you really have to twist that wheel to like get the thing to do anything.
dude, go drive. If anybody gets a chance to go drive a basically stock Crown Vic on a racetrack, do it
It's pretty good.
because you got to turn in at like yesterday to make it like actually set the weight into the corner at the time that you wanted to roll into the corner. It's so fun, but it's such an eye-opening experience to realize like the difference in the timing of the input versus the outcome. Um, how do you know when you need to stiffen things up? I think those are different questions because how do you know when you need to stiffen things up is more a setup question of what the car needs to do better a better job either for what you want or for what it can do. But that doesn't really have anything to do with what's more natural to what you are feeling. I don't think. What do you think? I talked a lot.
Well, in terms of like the car setup, like I was joking around with Ito's car, is there's like a window. Like if it's too floppy, then you're leaving like actual performance on hand, especially if there's any kind of like transitional elements. Then it because of the time it takes for the weight to actually like compress the suspension and then load into the tire and then the tire's in the ground. It like if that takes too long, then you're literally leaving time on the table just from the time it takes for the weight to actually press the tire into the ground, right? Now, this if the suspension is so stiff where it overloads the tire the moment you're setting weight into it, then now you just have a very skittish hard car to drive. So there's a window in there where as you shift the weight to the suspension points and into the tire, right? And then eventually into the ground, there's going to be an ideal weight depending on the aero, the tire, the surface conditions, all these different things, right? Like all those things to like be quote unquote optimized. Now, you can have like for example, like on an FRS, like I think they come with like 100 something pound spring stock. And uh I think like the normal setup for that car is like in the 300 to like 600 range of spring. So like 300 to like probably like 250 to 450 in the front and then like like 400 to like 700 in the rear, right? Like that's kind of like the window. Um you might like your driving and the way that you inputs and the way that you want the weight to move around the car might favor softer or stiffer or whatever, or maybe the course or track or whatever might favor different load rates of how the weight gets set into the wheel compared to other cars, tracks, or whatever's at play. But I think as the driver, you'll find out that you typically like you're just gonna mesh more with like a certain stiffness of the car as long as it's in the operational window.
Yeah, I think actually your little dig at Ito is a good example, if I can expand on that. So you said like Ito had a stock C6 Z06 basically,
It
and
was
then like
very
went
hard to
way
drive
out of the
because it was so soft.
right. They're very soft. They're so strange, and they also have a lot of lift, like aero lift. So and they're so fast. So you go from like 150 miles an hour, and the car is lifting itself off its chassis, and then you go to the brakes, and it like flops itself
And it
down on the
hits the
front
bump
axle, and then it
stops,
body rolls into the corner.
and then
Like
it's hitting the
they're
other bump
very very
stops.
hard cars to drive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then your example of like he modified the suspension and now it's way too stiff. By the way, hi Ito. Sorry, we're using you as the example because this isn't to say we're right, but it's a good example. That's a perfect example of Danny's question saying like when is it time to stiffen up the car? That is not a like that's not the same question. It's not like stiffer cars are better, you know.
Yeah.
It's that what does the car need? And there's motion ratios and there's suspension geometry and there's all this stuff that goes into that you have to understand like some cars might have a 1,200-pound spring on
And
the
I'm not
back and
claiming
they
to
don't
understand it, just to be clear.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. But I'm just using the words to
Just
say like
using the
these,
words.
there's way more to it than like stiffer is better, or stiffer reacts faster. It kind of, but that's a very rudimentary way
My
of looking at it.
rudimentary knowledge of it is that the stiffer it is, the quicker the tire is going to load, and the tire will only accept so much load so fast. And the like basically, if you go beyond the window, then the car becomes skittish, and you have to be so delicate with setting weight on the corners that now the car's hard to drive in a different reason.
Yes. Now, all that said, I think a person who is used to driving a soft car or a person who's driving used to driving a car with a lot of weight transfer or a lot of delay from the input to the time the car reacts is always better equipped than a person who's not used to that. So, if you're looking to expand your horizons with the driving stuff, if you have the opportunity to go drive cars that are either less modified, honestly, even some cars are just they come that way. ND Miatas, ND MX5s, I should say, are wildly soft relative to a current generation uh, twin FRS BRZ,
Yeah.
GR86 BRZ. So if you were to go drive those back to back and you can make sense of the FRS BRZ twin and you can't make sense of the Miata, the more you can make sense of the super soft car, the better you're going to be at adapting to more cars. That's my experience. I don't know if that's true, but
I can see that.
if you're finding like anytime I get into a softer car or I don't know what to do with a softer car, I think that is a unique skill set that actually spills into other parts of driving. That like just being able to drive a stiff car, a kart, a formula car, a downforce car, a prototype, whatever, is because that limits your horizons to understand it versus in my opinion a soft car opens your horizons to that kind of stuff. What do you think?
Yeah.
You agree?
Yeah, that makes sense. Trying to think of like I'm trying to think of when I've driven like too stiff of a car. You know, I think it kind of comes down to like when I was talking about the preferences, and I'm very like a fingertips driver, and I think in general my preference. Oh my God, Tom, that car is almost on its roof. Tom just shared a
That
picture
was my
of him
I'll
autocrossing
put it
this '90s Civic. And I've never seen so much body roll. You know what's kind of cool, Tom, with this picture is that your body is perfectly perpendicular to the ground and none of that car is.
sure.
Yeah. You got like one of
I'll put
those
it in the thumbnail
you got
for
one of those
YouTube, but
trucker seats.
what that's a stock seat. That was the car I drove to high school for 3 years. So that's my point is like if you're used to that kind of thing and then you get in a stiff car, it's like, oh, it does everything I want faster.
I will say
Versus if you get in a car that does that and you're like, what the hell is happening?
I will say your
Then drive more
trajectory.
cars like that. Figure it out.
Look at your trajectory on that cone. It looks like it's going to be spot on.
I got the next picture after. You want to see it? This
Yeah,
is great
let's see it.
audio content. I missed it.
Oh no, you were in more of a push than I realized. You were understeering
Yeah.
so hard. Tom, the first picture looked like Tom was gonna like run over the base of the cone with like the tire that's basically in the air. And then the second picture shows like like him like a foot off of that cone, like wildly understeering past it.
Yeah. Not wildly. I did great at
Oh,
that event.
are you kidding? That is
I just didn't base it.
no. Wow.
I say looking with the what's the little character, the little claymation guy with the side eye?
Look at this. Look at this picture from Sam D. He's literally on 2 wheels.
All right, I want listener submissions for all the softest cars you've ever driven. I want to see body roll. Body roll in the chat. Body roll anywhere you want to go.
That's what we're calling this episode is body roll.
Yeah.
Body rolls. That's what we're gonna call it.
Watch out for my body rolls.
Man.
You know that song?
What? No, I don't know that song, Tom.
It's good for you.
Yeah, good.
Sorry, go for your thought. I keep interrupting you.
Anyways, I tend to be like a very fingertips driver, so I think I prefer like in that window, that operational window that I talked about. I think I prefer cars kind of on the stiffer end because I don't want to feel like I'm like having to huck the car. I do want to gingerly set the weight, like on all corners. But if you need like the little bit more compliance, then like obviously the softer is going to be like that little bit more compliance. It really comes down to like driving style of like where in that window that you want to be, but you can definitely miss that window. That's the thing that I want people to take away from this is that you can miss the window. And it's hard to
Yep.
recognize when you miss the window or maybe you're just not doing a great job. And it's hard to understand that. That's why I think it also is beneficial to throw other people in your car, no matter how good you are, just to like see like what they think. Like Erica Teal throws people basically me and Tom, from what I understand, in his car just to get like feedback. Like Eric's setting faster lap times than us, let's be honest, because like that car's really hard to drive. And
Speak for yourself.
oh, okay, Tom O'Gorman.
Kidding.
But like he still like wants our opinion on it. Like that's just like the way that Eric operates, right? He's like, what do you think? Like, and then we give him like little tidbits of feedback that maybe he wouldn't have thought of, or maybe he has thought of that and he just needs a confirmation. Like I think that's like a valuable tool that that a lot of people do take advantage of. But like if you've never thrown anybody into your modified car and you're wondering if it's you, like throw somebody in there. Man, look at all
I
this
like that
body roll in the chat.
we asked for body roll, and it's all Civics. It's just there's 8th gen Civic, 8th gen Civic, 8th gen Civic, 8th gen Civic, 7th gen Civic, my Civic, my Civic. it's all old Hondas.
Dude, Sam D is like a body roll champion, dude.
Yeah.
Sam, have you ever flipped a car? Like it seems like it's like your skill set, dude.
The funniest part is Sam autocrosses a cart now, so
Yeah,
he's probably the best, most qualified person to speak to all this weight transfer stuff.
This is wild. Oh, speaking of Civic, in the Discord I posted in our for sale channel, I posted the Civic race, the crashed Civic race car for sale. So if you're like, oh, what? I'm selling it as a parts car. I think it could be fixed to see the racetrack again. But the caveat there is I think the cage would have to be modified. I don't think the cage is in a safe position. I didn't know when I was running it that I was probably in danger, but I think the way the cage is right now, if you ever hit anything like hard frontal impact, I think your head would just bounce off the front of the cage. And I don't think it should be raced the way the cage is. So I think you'd have to modify the cage and fix the tweaked frame in the left rear of the car. So to me, it should be a parts car, but there's a ton of good parts on it, and I'd love to sell it all together. So it'd be $5,000 for the. It has 3 out of 4 MCSs. It has a built transmission with OS Geiken in it. A K20 that doesn't burn any oil. That has like the proper track like mods to it and stuff like that. Anyways, it's $5,000 for like everything.
Hang on, you
ST40
didn't
brake
sell that
kit.
part correctly. You had so the car is being sold as a parts car because it has a $5,000 transmission in it that has 1 weekend on it, with also a really nice differential and a perfectly running no oil burning K20.
Yep.
That's why the car is worthwhile.
Yes. And you have 3
So
out of 4 MCS two ways.
Right. So if any of that's worthwhile to you and you want the rest of a whole car, you also get the 3 ways, the three two ways,
ST40 brake kit, all the other race car stuff that would come with it, like the
Yep.
seat and the wheel and harness and NRG thingy and the 9 Lives Racing wing and then all my spares and then all the things. And please help me get this car out of my yard.
Then you got to mow the grass.
Well, I've been weed line trimming around it.
That's so funny.
And I think it would drive onto a trailer because it's been on a battery tender. I haven't started it in a year, but for the last year, it's been on a battery tender. So I think if I just crank the key, it would just start right up.
Oh, it'll totally pull itself up on a trailer if it starts.
Yeah.
Because the only reason it's totaled is because the rear body is, correct me if I'm wrong, the rear body separated itself from the rear quarter, like what do they call it? Not a monocoque.
Uh,
There's a big separation on the left rear from where you hit the wall, right?
it's not a big separation. I think everything was like shifted like down and over to like an inch. And then it like the wheel kind of like thrashed through the trunk. So there's like a window into the trunk right now. And
Right.
I wouldn't suggest having a window into your trunk.
It's just dragging along, right? Isn't that the isn't that the front wheel drive trope?
Oh, the rear? Yeah. I mean, it almost aligns straight with how it is, with the eccentric like all the way out, but no, not quite. It would need to be tugged and fixed. And like I said, you'd have to change the cage so like it would be safe to take out on the racetrack. After you fix the thing and modify the cage or whatever, I honestly think it would just be way better to just put a new cage in like a straight chassis and then use all these like glorious parts, and then you'd have like a really, really great car. Or maybe you already have an eighth gen and you're like, yeah, $5,000 to like turn this thing into like a really awesome track car or race car. Like, yeah, that I think that's who I'm going for.
Somebody help them out. It's worth it. The transmission is good. That's the transmission Eric Coutillo runs, right?
I have a PPG straight cut final drive that's good for like 800 horsepower because I was sick of losing final drives, and an M Factory gear set, which is like good for like drag racing. Like the whole thing's built for like 800 horsepower for my 200 horsepower Civic, and it has one weekend on it with an OS Geiken diff and new synchros and new everything. Literally everything's
Dude,
new.
if anybody's connected to all these people who drag race their little Hondas with 800 horsepower, hook them up. Tell them
Yeah.
like, hey, here's a transmission. You
Yeah,
get a whole car with it.
Here you go. Yeah, basically.
Those people who race these front wheel drive Honda drag race cars, those things seem crazy.
It doesn't seem like it would be that much fun though, would it?
Oh, I bet it's so fun. I bet. So I have a theory about drag racing. We'll end on this. I feel like the drag racing stuff, it gets fun under 10 seconds. You said it was fun to race.
It was fun
like,
in the
and you were
Super Bowl,
doing what?
but
You were doing
that's
like 11 something?
yeah. I forget exactly what I was doing. Yeah, maybe 11s, maybe like really high 11s, low 12s. But it was fun because the car squirmed down the drag strip more than I would think it would. But like front wheel drive, would it squirm?
What was it squirming for? Was it
I don't
windy?
know. I don't know. It doesn't squirm like that on straightaways, but down the drag strip, it was kind of like wiggling and like maneuvering around.
So my theory is things get really exciting after 10 seconds, under 10 seconds. And these people doing like all motor, is that right? I'm just stealing a word from the chat. All motor like Civic builds where it's like literally a front axle with a motor on it, and then like everything else is just whatever to make it like not, you're just like going against the rotation of the engine to keep the car from
All motor means there's no
like, it's just
turbo.
oh, I don't care. Okay, great. Sure. If they're doing like 8s and 7s, I bet that is so cool. I bet that's so fun. But I think anything slower than that sounds pretty boring.
It was
Unless
fun.
you're like doing the heads up battles and
Yeah,
stuff, which
it was.
we're gonna
It
hear
was
from
fun.
Ross Bentley about your battles. Oh,
He's not even gonna remember it.
Ross, do you remember the guy screaming at you at the drag strip on one lap?
I was not screaming at him. Oh no. Yeah. All right. I'm looking forward to have Ross on. I think that's going to be the end of the episode. If you're in the live audience, we're recording this one tomorrow. If you just listened to this, you missed the live recording with Ross.
It happened yesterday.
And you should be in the Discord.
Yep. What are you doing this weekend?
This weekend, I'm driving to Colorado, Tom. I'm actually leaving on Thursday. We're going to drive like 6 hours. And then I'm going to work remote in like a Panera or a Starbucks or something. And then we're going to drive like 8 more hours. And then we're going to sleep. And then we're going to drive like 4 more hours and we'll be at our destination.
Cool.
What are you
That's
doing?
gonna be so fun. How's your hiking going? You guys, you're ready? You're in shape? You're in fighting shape?
Christine's in fighting shape.
Christine is.
Yes.
You just got to keep up.
I just have to keep up. You
All
know,
right, deal.
I got that sim racing bod though. Like I'm ready.
You're gonna walk up on your forearms.
I'm just going to be holding a steering wheel for comfort.
Yeah. Oh my God. That
What? Oh God, Tom just died.
walking up a hiking trail with
Yeah, with my steering wheel.
turning a little bit everywhere you go.
Yep, yep.
That is hilarious. This weekend I might go up to Mid Ohio. I'm actually prepping for my trip to Europe. I leave on next Tuesday, the 1st, which is why this week's episode with Ross is pre-recorded. But I got a little bit to prep with that. Got to go shopping for a couple of pieces of equipment I don't have. But I'm thinking of going up to Mid Ohio on Saturday to watch some racing, as long as the weather's not crazy. We got that good like Mid Ohio forecast, 50-50, high humidity, 80 degrees. So you never know what's going to
Maybe
happen.
thunderstorms.
The best part is I live 45 minutes away. So if I wake up that day and it's really nice, I'll just drive up there.
Whose crew are you going to be? Because apparently there's no spectators. I
Brian
think.
Christoph, he said, do you want to be my spotter? And I just said yes.
Yep. Just now. Nice.
Can I bitch about that for a second? What the
Yeah.
hell?
What are we doing?
All right,
I think
so
that's a Mid
this isn't
Ohio
Grid Life's
thing.
fault.
I think it's a Mid Ohio.
It's a Mid Ohio thing. It is. They want to have no spectators because it's IndyCar next weekend, which okay, whatever. But like what motorsports is already limited by money, and then it's limited by time. You're gonna close the gate on people and not let them watch? Like, come on, Megamind. What are we fucking
What are
doing
we
here?
doing?
Sorry, what are we doing?
Is
like,
this
why
is
are you
this-
closing the doors for people to
is
see
this to
this
keep-
awesome thing?
Is this to keep like the grass like fresh or something? Like what?
That's all I can figure. But Jesus Christ, that's just it's so inappropriate. It's so disrespectful. It's so not okay for people to not be able to at least come see this cool thing, let alone be able to participate. They already can't participate half the time because they can't afford it. At least let them come in.
Yeah.
It makes me mad. I hate paywalls. I hate closed gates. I hate no spectators. Like, ugh.
But yeah, I just don't understand it because if somebody really wants to watch, they're still gonna watch. Like Exhibit A, Tom O'Gorman right here. Like if you wanted
But
to watch, you're gonna
the difference
find
is
in. But like you're already in the community. What if you're just like, oh, I hear there's a race going on in Mid Ohio, and then you're gonna show up and there's no spectators? Like what?
yeah, you get turned around. Like
Like what kind of
what are we
like
doing?
weird like privileged like hoity-toity like thing does that look like all of a sudden? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. I mean, we're not preaching to anybody who can help, but it's
motorsport should be the most
hate it.
inviting thing possible. Like that's what's best for motorsport. So Mid Ohio not allowing spectators is just a negative in every possible way.
Yep. All right. Well, on that note,
You hear that, Mid Ohio? We're coming at your ass.
yeah.
All right, great track to drive though.
And on that note, damn, you got me again. I don't know what I'm going to say, but Mid Ohio do better, but I still love your hair and I still hope you win.